Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of Excel Bits. In this episode we're gonna see how to start a macro if you have absolutely no clue, and we're gonna explore all the tool and the basic concept to get started at least. So we're gonna cover mainly three items: how to access the VBA console, what are the principal items to look for in the VBA console, and at the end we're gonna learn how to record our first macro and to get started with the VBA code. So let's start with how to access the VBA console. In order to do so, we have to enable the developer tab. So you see, in my version of Excel, I have already enabled, but I'm going to show you how to do it. First of all, we're going to click on File. Then we're going to go on Options. Here on the option, we care about this Customize ribbon. In here, we have on the right hand side where it says Customize ribbon main tabs, we have to make sure that our developer tabs it's flagged as yes, so it's ticked. Normally this is not. So normally Excel comes this way and you see here I don't have access to the developer one. Now we're gonna put it back. Okay, now that we have access to the developer tab, we can find quite an interesting buttons here, quite an interesting number of things that we can do here. So many of them are not relevant for you at the moment, but this one here is record macro. Okay, we're gonna get there in a second. But before we get there, we have to talk about how to actually access the macro. So we can use this button here that is called Visual Basic, or we can also use the shortcut that is pressing Alt and F11 altogether. When we click, we access to the VBA consoles. So you see, you can get to see some code that I have here for some other reasons, but normally when you get to start, this is the view that you get to see, where here you have all the files that you have open plus the add-in. In this moment, I do have two add-in, which are not relevant for this project. But what is important is that this is the file that I have open. I call it indeed VBA Tools Intro. Within the file, I have two sheets, the Excel bits and the agenda, and I don't have anything else at the moment. So what I can do already, I can click with the right hand button and insert a module. A module is basically the code placeholder, the place where we can write code. We can write also in many different places, but for now, for the sake of this, for this lesson, this should be enough. All right. So how do we get back to the Excel file? We can either select here, as you see, once I hover over the Excel file, I get two windows where I can either go back to the file or I can switch to the other one, or simply if I press Alt F11, I go back to my file. Okay, so now we want to record our first macro. So we can just click here, record macro, and we can give it a name or not. We're gonna call it first macro. And he asks us where we want to store the macro. So we have normally two places where we can store the macro. We can either store in our personal workbook. The personal workbook is invisible, but you have to imagine as a file that Excel open all the time in the background whenever you use Excel. For now, we want to just save it on this workbook here. We can add optionally a description, and then we start clicking OK. Once you start clicking OK, of course, spaces are not allowed, so normally we can use an underscore or no spaces at all. Once we click OK, what you get to see is that this icon here, it turned into a stop button. That means that as of now, basically Excel is recording every action that we do. So if we decided to scroll this page, for example, up and down, then Excel recorded it. So how do we see what are we doing? Probably the best way is to click Alt F11 and access the module 2, which is the place where we have stored the macro. We can just put it smaller so we can follow it while we navigate and we do some basic action here. Let me put it here, side to side. And as you see, it's still recording everything I do. So first it records that I scroll the windows down, and now it's recording that I resize it. So if we want to add a new tab, for example, then you see, new line of code will appear. Let's say that I want to rename this tab test, and then I want to start inserting value on row 3, and then some numbers and anything like that. All operation will appear here. When I'm done, I can click stop. So the best way to get started with VBA is absolutely by looking at all the information that are recorded by the macro recording. This is normally how everybody starts. That doesn't mean that it's the best way, but if you're approaching VBA and you are curious how to move the first steps, here is where you have to look at. Additional items that are worth mentioning for now, this is the immediate windows. So this is technically a procedure. You see, it has a start and it has an end. While this console here, it's to execute commands in real time. So for example, we can just write one code where we get to see this. This is a very stupid instruction because we ask to print in this console the X, which they did it. Normally, this is very useful when you will start getting into it more serious code. But for now, that's all. So if you want to know a little bit more about Excel bits, just subscribe and let me know if you like this